Good evening and welcome to this Sunday, April 11th edition of the Island Stats Football Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me as co-host, Maceo Dill. We await the arrival of both Nikita Robinson and Garrett Punchy Dill. But Maceo, as this will be the final show for the season, we look around our region and I kind of sent you guys just some correspondence regarding what other countries around our region are looking for in advancement as far as players, coaches, and collectively getting the region getting stronger. I know just prior to this coming on the air, we had that conversation that the journey has started, but still a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely we've got a long way to go. The Nations League is a platform that potentially helps the smaller countries in our region to get better. And if the smaller countries in our region get better, then it's going to challenge the bigger countries. So when we speak of Mexico, the United States, the Jamaicas, Canadas, those sort of Costa Rica, those powerhouses in our Costa Rica's not in our region, is it? Those powerhouses, they develop and improved outside of our region, but we need our region to actually get better from the perspective of the player, from the perspective of the organization, from the perspective of the coaching. But we're just actually begun that journey. So, reading that article, we can't yet compare to the bigger powerhouses of the South American region or the European region or even the African region.
Definitely, we're going to take these steps, but make sure that we're doing all the groundwork to make sure when we do make the step, we're on level ground, because there's been times where we've tried to make a leap, or let's put it like this, years ago, you used to get drawn with a big country, one hitting you out kind of thing. Now they're trying to make sure that there's obviously more football being played at the national level in the region, which can only help not only us, but other CFU countries, other CONCACAF countries to actually become more vibrant and allow their players to be on show globally.
Well, I mean, if we take it a step further, that's been part of the FIFA's platform to deliver this game to the world, right? So, FIFA's, look where the next World Cup's going to be. We all have our opinion about where it's going to be and why it's there and how it got there. But it's delivering the game to the world, right?
Right.
And it's delivering the game to places that historically the game wasn't played. So it's definitely a global brand that FIFA is doing, that also CONCACAF that comes under FIFA is now embarking, and UEFA that comes out under FIFA. You can see how they're growing their smaller nations, right? So they're actually also growing out smaller nations. We can speak of Iceland. We never knew about Iceland, 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
They've been to a World Cup, they've been to a European Cup. Now we understand Iceland. We thought it was just Iceland, right?
Right.
So they'll figure out how to grow football in Iceland. So CONCACAF is doing that. One of the biggest things that I see we actually need to improve in is also the coaching ability. So that article spoke of, local coaches, employing local coaches, not letting them go overseas and whatnot. But because football is a global tool, we actually can learn a lot from foreign coaches coming into our region and teaching us stuff while we're developing. And we can learn a lot by going into their region and bringing back stuff. Part of my even coaching development is being in other regions to see that I'm learning things that I didn't even consider just being localized.
Right. Well, let me ask you, on the local coaching front, I know you're part of the coaching association. What is the latest with that group? Because we hear that we have how many C licensed coaches, how many B licensed coaches, and all that. But has it come to a halt? Has all that come to a halt now, or how is that being processed through? Because I remember, well, obviously the pandemic has hurt a lot of the progress, but they were doing things online as well. But we don't hear any more of that progress being made. What's the latest there?
Well, if we had a stall, right? We had a stall, and the stall was because of the relationship that we had with the Scotland FA. That's how we was able to get the UEFA license with the relationship with Scotland FA. UEFA changed changed their policy as to being able to take the course outside their region. So
Hmm.
they came hard nosed. And remember, Jack Cavassier was one that connected us to it.
Hmm.
So an investigation as to how we continue to deliver that. Now, in the meantime, our CONCACAF region is creating similar licenses as we'll get in Europe. So we're actively now uh, engaging with the BFA of creating that license opportunity to deliver in Bermuda. And if we get to that space, for our coaches, it's going to be even cheaper for them to take the license here versus how expensive that it was for our coaches to be able to get a UEFA B license. I mean, you to get a UEFA B license, and don't quote me on this. I think he was forking out somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000. Coaches really don't have that, right? And the
Right.
BFA did a good job in assisting with half of that funding. So we have to figure out how to bring down that cost to encourage more people to. So with the work that's being done over the pandemic period is creating our own regional license under the umbrella of CONCACAF, and we still have to figure out if we are going in direction the our elite coaches that want a UEFA B license that potentially want to go work in Europe. That relationship has to still be figured out.
Mm. Well, I'm glad you brought that association with Scotland up. What over that, because it was what, 2 weekends or 2 weeks that you were over in Scotland for the to get the UEFA B, or was it 1 week?
It was 1 week that we was over there.
Right.
We was actually doing.
What were they doing different over there that they couldn't do by sending 2 or 3 people here?
Well, it was just regional, really. It was they could have done it here, but it was
Mm.
just territorial. It's like it was territorial where if you want a Scottish FA license, you got to get it on my ground, and
Ah.
you got to get it in my country. So we was doing all the preparation work here, and we was going over there taking the exam. So that's what it
Mm.
was looking like. All the preparation work was being done here because historically it would have been 3 weeks of that you would need to get that done. I think it is, and I don't quote. I think it's like 80 hours that you're putting in.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
was
Something
able to
like that.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah, we was able to break it up in two sessions, one in February and one in September. And
Hmm.
we was able to break it up where our coaches could do it after work. You know, the whereas historically over there, you actually give up 3 weeks of your time. You check into the hotel and you go through the whole process. So what we was doing over there in the last week is actually taking the exam of all the stuff that we learned. So it was structured in such a way that there were 4 parts. The 4 parts to the structure was, warm up, phase of play, a game session, analyst session. So it was, don't quote me, but it was structured in 4 parts. So once we practiced all those 4 parts, we took the exam in those 4 parts.
Mm.
But
Okay.
again, it was territorial for UEFA. It's like, well, this is my license. You have to do it in my region.
So basically, the one that you guys are now working with CONCACAF, hopefully that will get up and running very shortly. One will be able to take it in their host country, or they will. What are the talks on
Yeah,
that so
you
far?
you'll be able to exactly. You'll be able to take it in your host country because we're part of the CONCACAF region, right?
Okay.
So CONCACAF is also establishing coach educators with which Maurice Lowe, Mark Wade, and Richard Todd is undertaking that journey of becoming uh, level A, I believe it is, coach educators that they can now deliver in our regions, which it makes sense, right? It makes sense
Right.
that we brand our own licenses because, to be honest, we also need something a little different from what's being done in Europe, because
Mm.
our progress, our journey, while football is the same, our journey is a little bit different, and our journey is also cultural, you know.
Right. Right.
So So this method, whereas the BFA and the Bermuda Football Coaching Association is joining forces to be able to deliver licenses for our people. So the pandemic is allowed us to do it, and I've mentioned it a few times. Is about 10 of us that are doing regular Zoom meetings. First, we was doing it with one of the CONCACAF coach educators to developing our own licenses from an introductory course to a D level course to a C level course, a B level course, and then A level course, similar to what's delivered in in UEFA.
Right. Would the people that get them in the region, would those be recognizable recognizable by other regions, such as UEFA, such as the UK, such as
those politics still need to be worked on. Yeah, I mean, that is the thing. I mean, I have a coaching license. What's amazing, right? I have a coaching license that I got in Brazil, right, from Teo, a Brazilian that used to be here. Now Brazil's got the most World Cups, and that license is not recognized anywhere outside Brazil.
Wow.
So I have a Brazilian coaching license, right? And it's not recognized anywhere outside of Brazil. So think of their politics.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that would be a big.
Brazil's got the most World Cups, right?
Right. Yeah.
And every coach that's coached Brazil has been a Brazilian that's won the World Cup. Has been a Brazilian.
Well, that I think that would need to be worked out before we start putting people into coaching education. If it's not going to be recognized somewhere else other than the place in which you're.
Well, it will be recognized within our region. So if you got a CONCACAF license, so the idea is you got a CONCACAF license. Okay, you could be a coach at a school in the USA or Canada or any of those places within our region. But outside of our region, if you try to transfer that license away to Europe, it might not be recognized. And we're unique, right? Bermuda is unique because we do have a relationship with Europe because of our British status, but we're also in the region of CONCACAF. So we potentially we need both. Now, I mean, we take a guy like Troy Amanda that's we had on the show last week that's in Europe, right? You know, he needs his license. The license that he's embarking on now is going to get it in the UK is going to be a UEFA license, right? So we need them both.
Well, yeah, which would be very unique in a sense that you would probably still have to sit another exam to get the European one. Now we begun this relationship with Scotland through the late Jack Cavassier. Has anyone ever tried to, in the coaching side, to reach out to the English FA to see if they would be willing to assist as well?
Well, we're going down the path. That's a good question. I mean, you see the Nas that we had on the show last week.
Mm-hmm.
He was once a coach educator with the English FA. So he has, like you said, he has his pro license and he has the opportunity to deliver licenses. So it would make sense for us to go down that pathway of creating that relationship with the English FA. I mean, Maurice, who's the most from a qualification standpoint, he has a UEFA A license. He got that at the English FA. And when Maurice was out there, he met a buddy of mine, Richard Herner, who I did a course with in Trinidad. Richard actually called me up, and Maurice was there in the UK. So it does make sense that we form that relationship. But from the coaching education part of it, they was first investigating how they continue with the Scottish FA. And what's important to also notice about the Scottish FA was that they changed regime. The whole new executive came in, and we was looking to legalize the process. Before the process was based on the relationship that Jack had with everybody, because he was very high ranking within UEFA. So he used his influence to be able to help us. Jack always was in that position, he said, "Well, if I'm going to use my influence, I should use my influence to help grow football." So he was generous enough and to do that for us.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the article where it kind of mentioned the top players and what the especially the English or UK are looking for in a player coming from a place like the Caribbean. We'll be right back.
Nature's Path Organic are a family business, major proponents of the organic method of food production with decades of experience in the field, and have diversified their interests focusing on animal welfare and children's education in that realm. Hence the introduction of Enviro Kids cereal made to the exacting standards we expect and benefiting their cause. Saving animals one breakfast at a time. 1% of sales goes towards protection of animals and their habitats. We're featuring Enviro Kids organic, gluten-free Gorilla Munch cereal. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Maceo, in the article, the Barbados coach talks a bit about how more of our region are seeing their players go to the MLS because of such high regard in what is needed to actually make it into the bigger leagues. As he puts it, England, France, Spain, Germany, they have some very strict and stringent restrictions. Your country has to be within the top 70 or 75 in the world. You would have to have played 2/3 of your country's last matches. So although they have that, and we did talk about that, although they have that kind of written as a rule, when you see talent, they grab talent.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's exactly right. If you're good enough, they're gonna know about you. The world is not a secret no more, right? So when you're actually good enough, they're gonna come get you. So let's just look at that in the perspective of Dwight Yorke. Let's go back to that. He was actually good enough. So that was it was even harder back then to be able to make it in Europe. If he was coming from the Caribbean. But Dwight Yorke was actually good enough. And what we have to do is actually figure out how to be good enough that they want us. So right now we're good enough in our region for the MLS. We're good enough for the MLS. And we talked about last week when we were looking at Sadeo and there, we talked about this laid back attitude. For me, it's the laid backness is a softened word for our laziness. In the Caribbean, because in the Caribbean the sun shines, right? The sun makes you tired. We have this beautiful beaches and beautiful weather. Everybody that comes here gets laid back and puts their feet up, but that's not something that is acceptable in Europe. Right. So I've read Dwight Yorke's his book. I've actually right now I'm reading Roy Keane's book, and he talks about Dwight Yorke a lot, because when Roy Keane became coach of Sunderland, first thing he went is got Dwight Yorke, that was playing football at that time in Australia, making all his money playing football in Australia. And one of the things Dwight Yorke needed to agree to, he needed to get his car back, his Lamborghini back to Europe, because it's got this charisma, right?
Right.
So it's got this charisma and it's got this behavior, but that's not always acceptable in Europe. But he was good enough, so he was tolerated. He was tolerated at United. He was tolerated because he was actually good enough. So part of it is being good enough and knowing how to get us to a point where we're actually good enough.
Right. I mean, reading the article in the Barbados Press, one of the things I would have to agree with is that we are good enough to be getting that stepping stone in the MLS. I just think in our mindset, it's Europe. It's Europe, where there is professional football 2 hours away.
I actually think the MLS is about a step forward for right now. But again, the MLS is growing as a product, right? Yeah. It's growing as a product, and you see Beckham that's down there now, so it's growing as a product. Right now, the MLS is globally seen as a retirement place for the great players.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not yet seen and is seen as a stepping stone to get into Europe.
Mhm.
So it's going to have a little time that is going to rival and change the mindset. Yeah, and even the financial piece is different, right? The financial piece is different. Europe is way ahead of it. It was a book I was reading, right? I can't remember what it's called, but when you look at football globally, and it was a funny quote in the book. It says, Goa came in when they look at football from a global standpoint, and the Europeans said to Goa, "Why have you blasted South Americans with such talent, man? Look at Brazil. They got all this talent. Look at Maradona, all this talent. You blast them with all this talent. Why you didn't blast us?" So Goa comes back to him and says, "Don't worry. We blast you people. We blast you Europeans with organization, because in those regions they have no organization. And if you really thought about it, if they had organization in those regions to the level of the European regions, who wouldn't want to play football in Brazil?
Yeah.
Why would the Europeans want to go to Brazil and play football for us the weather? Or let's talk about the CONCACAF. Why wouldn't they want to come to those regions to play football? But we're improving our organization, so it balances itself out. Where you gave the Europeans the organization, the football gods gave the Europeans the organization to organize it, to market the game, to make the game exciting, and blast the South American region with all the players.
Yeah, with the talent.
With all the talent. So it becomes a little balance, right? It's a little balancing act that's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the domestic front, because obviously, with the season having come to an end, such another big disappointment. But overall, how do you think things will look for next season if we're able to get a season? Well, right now, under these circumstances, we're not even sure if we'll be all right in September. But how does the ending of this season, like last season, shape us up for a new start? Because it's going to be a new start.
So let's start that conversation off by looking at the youth leagues, because we have to make these kids have to play sports, isn't it? They have to play sports, whether it be football, whether it be whatever. They have to do sports. We're hearing. I mean, even if I look at, I had a conversation with my mate Kevin Grant, who was upset at the fire that was at Pete's Field last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? That's probably a mischievous kid that needs something to do. That's potentially.
In reality, yeah. Even if it's a young adult.
Is young adult.
Yeah.
Is potentially so. So if we look at it from that point, then we take football. There are a lot of things that we could do in football to make sure we have a league and make sure that we have numbers. We meet the numbers, because we're now knowing that we're going to be guided by numbers during these pandemic. So that we're guided by the number 10, 22, 25, or potentially 75. That's how we're looking at managing it as a country, right? So football potentially has the opportunity to say, okay, we play 7-a-side football. Why can't we play 5-a-side football and create more games at different locations? So why can't we take let's take a PHC or the BFA? Why can't we create more games that PHC has a game all through the day, and you put commerce there, you put a lunch wagon there, or you put somebody selling something there, and it creates an activity for the day. So we might have to manage it a little differently by making smaller side games. And then smaller side games actually do a lot to develop our players, because smaller side games, you get the ratio of the opportunity to touch the ball is better. So right now we have rosters of 14. That might not work, And then in smaller side games, you could isolate the talent. So we can have 3 divisions. Let's say we had 3 divisions. In a smaller side game, we know the A talent is here, the B talent is here, the C talent is here. And everybody's playing against their competitive talent. But with a roster of 14, we know there's a big diversity of the ability of a player in a roster of 14. But a roster of 7 players because we're playing 5-a-side football, that talent is going to be on the same levels, right?
Right.
So we might have
No.
to reorganize the youth league. Now for the senior league, it's going to be about the ability to get a testing regime in to control this, right?
Mm.
To get a regular testing regime to at least keep testing people to see where we are. So if we're taking examples from the professionals, that's what they're doing. They're testing 2 and 3 times, 4 times a week. They have a testing regime that they can now monitor. If somebody becomes positive, I can isolate. I can pull that positive people out. He can quarantine, versus everybody quarantine and a total shutdown. So we have to figure out how to get to a place where we don't have a total shutdown and we have safety. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought that plan was in place, and we had people abiding by it, or getting through the testing phase in various sports.
Mhm.
Obviously, just like the vaccine, you're never going to get 100% because there's some people that just don't want to be a part of it.
Mhm.
But when do we look to be creative, like you said, with the youth? When do we look to be creative with the adults?
Yeah, and what that creativity looks like, isn't it?
Right.
I-
No. One of the things, and I'm glad we're talking about coaches, because they could actually lead that drive. The coaches could actually lead that drive collectively with the group, because you guys would have the largest organized group of people outside the players.
Mhm.
And if you guys decided as coaches, level A, B, whatever, decided, listen, why don't we try to work with like you suggested with the youth, smaller groups, have them into game situations, and be creative in that manner.
For me, I look at myself and I individualize this conversation, and I'll step away from my head as from the Bermuda Coaching Association. My own journey with coaches at North Village, I got to work with all the coaches in Bermuda.
Mm.
So I got to grow up with Andrew, so I got to learn from him. Then Scott Morton comes there. Then Kenny Thompson comes there. Danvers Seymour comes there. Sean Goda comes there. Then at the national level, I got to work with Dennis Braun. So I've always been personally open to working with different coaches that have different philosophies and different understanding of the game than I do, and it's been a teaching lesson for me. But we're not there yet as a country to have all those big heads and personalities and big personalities come to it, and that's something I long for. I long for us to be in a room and have the argument and have the conversation and come to an agreement. How do we move this? How do we move it forward collectively? I long for that, and you're absolutely right. It should be driven by the Bermuda Football Coaching Association to be able to come up with the solutions to be able to let the game keep going.
Yeah.
Because we do have the solutions, right? We do. We do. So it's you go to Germany. I've been to Germany. I was in Germany last year, right? Germany at 11 years old, they're still playing 7-a-side. At 11 years old, they're playing 5-a-side football without a referee. You know what that looks like to me? Our backyard kick. That's so Germany is having our backyard kick that we want, that me and you know about, in a structured environment. So there's no referee on the field. There's no coach. The coach just set it up, and they're having a backyard kick. I was in Switzerland, right? I was in Switzerland in Zurich. I went to 10 different schools, and I noticed that all the schools have a concrete football pitch at the school. So that's purposeful, isn't it? They have a concrete. What concrete does? Concrete makes you get good balance, and the kids are just there playing. You know about concrete football pitches.
Oh yeah.
So we have these solutions that we could do, right? But it's just about getting us to agree to what the solutions are and put a roadmap in place to undertake it. So the solutions are there.
Yeah.
The solutions are definitely there. But
Well, we're going to take another commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you a direct question about coaching. We'll be right back.
Sure.
There was a time when sea vegetables were considered exotic by most, and then along came sushi consisting in raw fish with rice and sea vegetables, notably seaweed and porphyra. The folks at Gimme Health Foods know that sea vegetables are fat-free, low in calories, and one of the richest mineral sources in the vegetable kingdom, as they flourish surrounded by the mineral-rich ocean. And that roasted seaweed is a real good eats. Could this be the ideal snack? We're featuring Gimme Health organic sea salt and avocado and sesame seaweed snacks. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Well, Macy, I want to ask a question regarding yourself and coaching. Why aren't you coaching right now?
The only coaching job that I would take now is a coaching job at the national level. That's the only job that would interest me. We're not doing yet what we need to do at the domestic level, and what would happen to me, I would just butt heads with everybody, because I'm very serious about the development of football, and I'm not, and it's not a recreational thing for me. It's like it's a life. And my challenge now is for me to keep growing myself. My challenge is at the national level. So I've been asked to come back to Village. I've been asked to be at different clubs. And I already know that I start putting demands in place that we need to culturally do things different. I'm going to be the dartboard. I'm going to throw me up. I've been up on enough dartboards, and people throwing darts at me. I mean, they threw darts at me at my own club after winning Triple Crown, winning all the youth levels, and the protection wasn't there. The protection wasn't there when I start ruffling feathers, because, as you know, I will ruffle feathers. I will try to change cultural behaviors that we're not really ready to change yet. So I find my joy in sports now in cycling. So I get my joy out of sports, because in football was just, even when I on a Saturday, right, going to a youth football game, and while I could be doing what I'm doing with my kids, and I see other coaches shouting at kids, and I see them giving kids the wrong information, and then when I try to address it, then I'm enemy number one when I start to address it. And I think I'm so much in love with the game, I can't see it being implemented wrong, or implemented to a point where it's not growing us.
Right. So why isn't that being addressed in the Coaches Association?
Yeah, that's another thing. I think that's a platform that these things need to be addressed. And to be fair to the Coaching Association, now the relationship's getting better with the BFA, that those two organizations are talking about creating a comprehensive coaching syllabus and direction. That's the piece of addressing it. I think if you got to look at that question you asked from a bigger perspective. We're just now learning about coaching education. We're at the first stage of getting qualified.
Right.
We're at the stage yet where we're gonna have that conversation with each other, how we're gonna create our structure.
Right. But if you're just getting started, this is the time to have it.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Part of my platform, I ran for president of the Coaching Association, and part of my platform was to run for it was to unite the coaches and to build a cultural Bermudian style of football. And the people that I lobbied to show up, that I'm helped to get licensed to show up to vote for me, they didn't show up and vote for me. I got voted out as the vice president. I got voted out as the vice president. I'm still on the executive because but I got voted out. Regardless of the work that I've done or the experiences that I have or the contacts that I have, the people that I've helped, they didn't show up to vote. So we're not there yet. And I understand that we're not there yet. We don't see ourselves doing things collectively yet. We still see ourselves doing individually. And I know when you're thinking about me, there is apprehension of dealing with me because people know I'm going to be outspoken. You know, they understand I'm going to be outspoken and I'm going to be direct, and I'm, you know, so we're not yet used to that in Bermuda yet. You know, but it's something that we are getting used to. Where we are getting better at being, you know, just because I don't have a positive or I don't say something to you about positive in football doesn't mean that we have to be animus, right?
Right.
You know, and we're learning that.
Yeah, everybody has a difference of opinion, regardless of what. Yeah. We can both watch the same thing and have a difference of opinion. Yeah, and that's healthy debating. That's all that is.
Yeah.
What other than obviously you have strong convictions about the youth game. What are some of the other things that you see that need to be addressed and can be addressed at an early stage when coaches are dealing with the young people?
Well, they have to understand that the young people they're not just small adults. They're not adults at all. So, yeah, a 5-year-old might cry, and you might have to hug him up. You know, whereas a coach, get up, don't cry. Like, so that psychological piece, right, is and then coaches have to understand that at 10, no matter how good you think that player is, he's not at Real Madrid yet. So the tactics can be Real Madrid tactics. So the coaches, I actually think some of our coaches are too experienced and too advanced to coach children. If that makes sense, like, because they're coming with full tactical master plan for a 7-year-old, and it's like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about, man. I just want to get the ball. I want to score. That's it. I don't want to drop back into space. I don't want to, you know, stay on the wing, you know. And what we're doing to kids is we're overcoaching them because we're giving them so much information, and then they have no independent thinking. So we're doing that to kids, and it's amazing in my travels, and I go places, you know, when I go places and see coaches, all the coaches down on the training ground, the game is the opportunity to enjoy yourself. And somebody that done that well 20 years ago was Kenny Thompson. Like, when he first came to North Philly, like, I thought it was strange that he wasn't giving any information on Shelton during the matches. I can remember, I said, oh, this guy don't really know what he's doing. But then I saw how he was preparing the team in training, and then he was assessing the team in the matches. And that was just new to Bermuda, that he's not standing up to Shelton and his, you know, his assassin, and he'll fix what he's got to fix at halftime. But that's actually proper coaching, right? You know, whereas what we do right now, we don't coach, we commentate. In this country, we commentate, kick the ball, go right, go this. That's not coaching, that's commentating. I know how to commentate. Yeah. So, but to convince us to do otherwise, like, you know, I'm had to go at a lot of coaches. Like, you can imagine in my time at North Village, where, you know, I'm giving people information and I'm being analytical of them. They wasn't used to that. I don't almost be analytical to somebody outside of North Village. Did I freeze up? Can you hear me, Seal?
Yeah, I can hear you.
On my screen, I'm freezed.
Yeah, that's all right. It will catch up. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to be far more analytical, and then that analytical piece can help us, so we can learn that analytical piece, you know, by interacting with the global world of football, right? You know, and that's something that we have to do better to interact with the global world of football.
Right. Now, you know, we talk a lot about you know, other places, and then you've mentioned that, you know, when you go to Germany, when you've been to Switzerland and so forth, the carrot are dangled in front of these youngsters from a young age that there's light that they could possibly make it professionally, whatever league it is. Where here, just trying to get out of the country is the aim and the goal through education. Could that be a kind of a setback regarding how fast and how mature we want to get our kids to an age to want to develop or be able to develop?
I'm just trying to understand the question. That question is, you suggested that it's a carrot, educational or professional carrot there.
Right. So here in Bermuda, our carrot is education, progress through education. Yes.
Mm.
We're out in Germany and England and all that. Their progress is based on trying to get into a professional football team.
Mm. Well, those countries have it both, right?
Mhm.
They have both. If you're not good enough for professional, well, you could become a coach. You could go to education. So just look at when it was amazing when I was in school in the U.S. How many English people there that didn't make it in academy football that were playing college football, or that then started programs. Like my son played for a team, GPS which is in Boston, and he was in Boston for a year. These were Irish guys that didn't make it in football in professional football. They end up going to Harvard, and when they finished Harvard, instead of working for a company, they formed their own football company, and they
Right.
became the biggest football company on the East Coast. And then they formed their own travel company. Part of that Axel group that I mentioned to you in a different setting. They
Right.
formed their own company around sports, and you know the opportunity there is for both. So in Africa right now, they have these academies that they already know that, you know what, you're good enough for professional football, you're good enough for education, you're good enough for local football, and they have pathways that they get people there. So what we just need to do better here in Bermuda is put established pathways and relationships in place that transition us there. I mean, you heard Sadeo last week talk about that he knows what the pathway looks like, and it's clear and identified to him. He has to decide if he's going to put the work in to go to the top level, or you know he didn't mention last week, but he's accepted into 4 universities.
Mm.
So he's accepted into 4 universities, a sports university that's being facilitated out of Wembley Stadium, because Wembley Stadium has a university there. They have a whole different. It's not just a football stadium now, and it's also associated with the Etihad, which is in Manchester. So they have all these different uses happening. It's not just a football stadium. So they'll, that was how I developed him. Football was the carrot to get him to education. Now he could have a professional opportunity that comes shortly. Then it's a decision that gotta make is, does he take the route of the professional opportunity, or does he take the route of education? And but that's not new, because we could go back to Corey Hill. Corey Hill had the opportunity. Do I go to Holt City on trials, or do I go to take a scholarship opportunity in Alabama? He took the scholarship opportunity. So it's not new to us. But what we have to do is create that pathway, create that relationship, and develop the player. We have to figure out what it looks like to develop the player.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a last commercial break, but then when I come back, what the question is, what age should we be then putting them structurally into the games? We'll be right back.
Just in time for spring cleaning comes a fragrant, naturally effective solution. Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day Household Cleaners. Formulated not with the usual harsh chemicals like chlorine, ammonia, and petroleum derivatives, but powerful natural essences with garden-inspired scents. Safer for your children and pets, and aromatherapeutic too. This month we're featuring Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day Laundry Detergent with geranium and lavender, multi-surface cleaners powered by the invigorating aromas of lavender, bluebell, and honeysuckle, and more. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. So Maceo, you were earlier saying about our at our certain age of 7, we were doing one thing and others were doing a different. When should we be structuring training and game situation for our youngsters? At what age in Bermuda?
Yeah, it's no different from the world. The backyard doesn't exist no more. The backyard player actually doesn't exist right across the world. I mean, you take Messi at 12 years old, he left Argentina and at Barcelona. So what the structured environment is done everywhere else. Is create the backyard within structure. So I just explained Germany at 11 years old, they're still playing 5-a-side football with 11-year-olds, without a coach, without a referee.
Right.
Within structure. So we can do that right now, like at 4 years old. At 4 or 5 years old, we could do that. So we're not gonna stop doing that, because these are outlets for parents, and remember, sports is also a developing tool for parents now. It's a tool that parents are using to give their kids outlets and stuff like that. And so what we have to get better at, is the piece of overcoaching these kids at 6 years old. Leave them, let them have fun and enjoy it. Set the structure up and let them have fun and enjoy the game. And when they get to 11, when they're built tools to play the game and they're in love with it, or they're in love with the sport, then we start implementing the rules and the regime to teach them the game. So we're gonna do it almost immediately from 5-6 years old, right?
Right.
Because that's how society is structured now.
So when we have I guess that you call them academies, such as the one that Kenny has, Andrew have, others have put it together. Dennis has Bermuda Brazilian, and they're taking kids at a young age. Are they doing more technical work at the age in which you're referring to, where we should be allowing them to play, or are they allowing the kids to play at that age?
Well, definitely. Here's how I easily saw the Dennis Brazilian Academy. I saw every player that went to Dennis Brazilian Academy. I see technically he was better than the rest of the players. So it's obvious that futsal, that indoor piece, the ball moves quicker, you get more touches of it, smaller numbers, the kids getting better. So they're immediately, and that's something that's done in Brazil, right? Part of their development is they become these creative players because of futsal. Leeds United right now, you see even big players that got a creativity. They beat Leeds United, beat Man City the other day. Leeds went to Brazil and studied that futsal piece. They have futsal academies in Leeds. I think when we had the futsal coach in there, he's fully aware of that. Peter Ricard. So it's no secret that a South American coach, with his South American ways and South American tactics and the South American culture, goes up to Leeds to coach the leagues too, because he would know that within their community that they're developing these technically gifted and creative players that can beat a Man City. No, they got to get the winning culture back, right? That's a different piece. Can they sustain it week after week after week? So in Bermuda we have gyms. We can implement futsal.
Right.
Play 4-a-side, 5-a-side. Well, got everything here. We're just not pieced the puzzle together, right?
True. Well, as you are aware, we're getting ready for the government press conference at the top of the hour. So, and I've got to join that. But I want to say, Maceo, thank you very much for this first season of the football show. It has been quite enjoyable, and all your work and effort to get coaches on a regular basis to have us have that dialogue for how long now? What's it been, about 8 months?
8 months.
Yeah. Went by fast.
Yeah.
So, and we do look forward to, once we find out when the season will commence, we'll pick this back up.
Okay, I've enjoyed it, man. Good stuff, man.
All right.
Appreciate it. Talk
Stay
later.
in touch.
All right.
Okay, folks, enjoy your evening.